Okay, so we're talking lower body and how it works. And the first thing that you have to remember is that when you look at your hip structure, it's not a circle. It's oblong. Your hips are oblong. So left hip socket, right hip socket, and then the center of your hip. So when you set up and you draw a line on the back of your hip, okay, depending on where you are in the swing. So let's say at the strike. If you're on that line at the strike, you're actually, your center of your hip is a little closer to the golf ball. So we want to make sure that your left hip is going more left of that line at the strike. Now, depending on how open your hips are, is going to depend on how much you're going to be left of that line. So if your hips are really open, you really got to be left. Not that much open, then just a little left. But if you're just on the line, which, most people are closer to it, they're not even on the line. You can tell how close they are to the golf ball. But if you're just on the line, that center is still a little bit closer. So we're going to go kind of review this in the backswing, what happens, but more particular, what happens in the transition with the better player, especially if your hips are going to be pretty open at the strike, which typically they are with high speeds. So again, right hip socket moves back. Okay, now when you transition, the better player's right hip, okay, is actually in the transition going to move even further back as they get set into their left leg. Okay, as you set into your left leg, now you can push away. Again, it's going to feel like it's on the inside part of that part of your foot, but as you get back here and transition, your right hip actually almost sinks in a little bit more, and it puts you right on the inside part of your foot. So now you can really, really push away. So here's what it looks like face on. So back here, and then as you start down, so it's there. So as you start down, you get into this foot, inside foot, but your right hip actually moves even a little bit further back as you transition, instead of getting back here and then transitioning this way. You can see how my right hip went towards the golf ball. So what I want you to do is feel like you get here, and when you transition, almost feel like your hip, when you move towards the target a little bit, the right hip actually moves back even a little bit further. Now, contrary to most people, what they do is they get here. So in other words, if I'm just thinking right hip socket, left hip socket, and I go back and go right hip socket this way, left hip socket, you can see I moved forward. So it's right hip socket. Then when you transition, you almost feel like this goes back deeper, so it's easier to get a little bit more left. So as you swing, there. And you'll find it's much easier to push away. It's almost like if you were shooting a basketball and you passed it to me and I got right here and I turned around, see, I kind of almost sit back and I sit down and then I shoot the basketball. I wouldn't catch the basketball and then go forward with it and then try to shoot it. I'd get the basketball here, sit back this way, bring the ball back down in front of me and shoot it. It's the same thing with here, but with the golf swing, but I'm doing it down here. So when I get here, I sit back and then I can go. So it's definitely a more sitting position. Back and sit as you transition, and then you can really, really go left. But that will help you get away from the golf ball, move your center away from the golf ball, have more room for your arms to swing by kind of adding that little position in the transition. Here, and when I transition, feel like your right hip goes back even farther and deeper and go into the ball. It gives you a ton of room, puts you into your left side a little bit more, a lot more actually. You can push off more, makes your arms go faster.